or hit the button. Hold on.
There it is.
Oh, we're up.
There it is.
I just don't know why we can't stream to our Facebook group anymore. YouTube won't let that. It won't even let me share the video on onto the group for some reason. So, all right. Well, let's roll anyway. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool. And Jonathan, today we're talking about the 48 Laws of Power.
Power. You know, this book is, if you have this in your possession and you utilize it for no good, we're not talking about you, okay? We're talking about the making people aware of the 48 Laws of Power. We're going to go through some of these because whether you've been in a cult, you've been in a network marketing company, not that those two are the same. If you ever watch the gurus out there and just some of the you'll see some of the power plays that they employ from this book. And there's quite a few of them. We're not going to go through every point in the book, but it is a fascinating study.
We're not going to go through all of these, all 500 pages or whatever it is.
So you had a comment on this book. By the way, the book's by Robert Greene. And
it was, I didn't realize how old it was.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I did not have this in my library. I think I might have listened to it on Audible years ago.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the book, so I had to buy it when you mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how old it was. It's from 1998.
98, yes. Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, like, have some of these changed with the online world?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think so, because a lot of this is
timeless. We'll see.
Fundamental principles of it's kind of like you mentioned Cialdini's principles of influence, the 6 principles of influence. This is 48 laws, and I think most of these are still timeless to this day, even with technology. Probably even more so in some areas. I would think they would be. But you see it in politics. We're in the political funny season right now. You see it in politics. You see it in everything. And we've talked a number of times about cults and how they use a lot of these things to influence people. And we're just going to make you aware. Now, there are some things that you can take away as a copywriter, as someone who, Sean, you write copy. There's a lot of takeaways in here that you can employ in your copy that I wouldn't say are pretty, are underhanded in any means. But
no, I think there's a good mix of, like, there's ones that you could certainly adopt no matter who you are and kind of how you feel. And there are others that are very much warnings and, like, watch your head type things.
Right. Yeah.
But you were telling me before the show, you use all of these in your marriage. Is that right?
Holy cow.
She's not listening as far as I can tell.
No. Although I won't even say that.
Now that we mention it, let's go back and read this again.
She would probably, if she read a few chapters, she probably would, like, dump this book in the trash can, probably.
Yeah, it feels a little, like, naughty and wrong when you first start going through it.
Yeah.
Like, I texted you and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really like this book. It's like, it feels a little.
It does.
It feels a little harsh, a little evil.
If you think this is bad, you should read the seduction book.
Yeah, and then and then there's mastery, and then there's I mean, he's got a whole,
he's got one on war too that follows a lot of the art of war stuff. But he goes into a lot more depth than Sun Tzu, I guess.
I did read the 50th Law with 50 Cent. That was
with
really
50
good.
Cent. That's a great book.
Yeah. This feels a little even darker than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 50 Cent was like, I could see that, how he applied, like, rules of the street and things like that to boardrooms and how that could be very intimidating in that crowd, and how he was just, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, like, why he's been able to do what he's done. Cause, like, you come off the streets and go to a boardroom, it's like, Please, really? Like,
who's going to take you? Yeah, who's going to take you serious?
But yeah, this has definitely got a little darkness to it if you don't hold it in the right way.
Right.
So I think it's important. Well, I think we'll go through like what power means. This is something I've kind of played with for a long time. I think it's important to define power.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's talk about our beverages, and then we'll get
All
into
tease. But you got to tease one thing, one specific chapter that you're going to be talking about, and make it really good.
How about I read a quote?
Okay.
From the preface that kind of sets the book up.
Yep.
Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great numbers who are not good.
So, provocative.
So
thought-provoking.
Yes. So it's not just are you being good, it's like who are you battling against at the same time? Like it's
yeah. So hence the saying, nice guys finish last, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. All right. Yeah, let's talk about our beverages. What do you have over there?
All right. So I've got this looks good. This is a light grinder American porter. And nothing special. It's from
except the price.
Yeah, and that's for a 4-pack.
Okay. I was like, is that the single price?
No, that's for a 4-pack.
Yeah. Okay. It's not bad then.
Let's see if we can. I don't know. It's I don't even know what the they don't give a lot of detail on here. I don't even know what the ABV on this is, Sean.
Yeah.
But it is a complex assortment of European toasted, caramelized, and roasted barley. It's paired with rolled oats for a deeply black porter to create a rich and developing taste for firm usage of citrusy. This is terrible. Yeah, there it is. It's 5.8% ABV. So hopefully the beer is better than this copy.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully so. Well,
what do you got?
So I've got one. The can looks like a box of cereal. So that it like
what is that? Hive
5.
Hive 5.
Yeah, so it's a honey blonde. It's ale brewed with honey. So it's a blonde ale brewed with honey. All it says about it is water, malt, honey, yeast, and hops, and it's 5.2%.
Okay.
But it looks almost like a box of Honey Nut Cheerios or something with little bees, friendly little bees on there.
Very cool.
It's kind of a cloudy ale. So it's not quite an ale, not quite a mead, I guess. Right. So,
all right.
We'll see. Cheers it up.
And hold on, before we cheers, I might break out this little, this is one of my...
Is that to celebrate football season?
Yes, which is tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's the opening weekend. Yeah, we got some lousy games.
Yeah.
But you got something, right?
Conference USA games or something tomorrow, probably. Yeah.
But this is one of the 48 laws of power. Breaking out a stogie and smoking it right on the air.
And blowing it right in your
blowing it right in your face. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's cheers.
Cheers.
That was kind of weak. There we go. Oh, that's good.
All right. What do you rate it? Now that it's half gone. Must be good.
It is very good. I'm going to go 4.8. 4.8. All right. Yeah, like it's good.
You were hesitating there. I thought maybe a 5 was coming.
Like, it was being considered, but it gets a 4.8.
This is not even just like it's not a bad taste. It's just almost tasteless. It actually tastes a little watery. Not impressed at all. So I'm going to give this a 2.5. Like it's not like an IPA bad. Like it's just bad. Like just kind of bland.
Oh,
like it's got a little watery feel to it.
I should have one of those. I need to have a loser button on here
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I'm going to give it like a 2. I can't even do 2.5. I got to go like 2.2.
Phew.
Yeah,
Mm.
just not great.
Not great.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
maybe you can make it through it.
All right, back to the book.
Back to the book.
So there were some other little things I wanted to look at in the preface, because one thing is, there's something I forgot to mention before we get to the book. Do you know what today is? This
Friday.
day might go down in the annals of history.
Wow, that's a big one.
That may be hyperbole as well, but
I have no idea outside of the fact that it's a Friday.
So so yesterday, August 22nd, actually, I guess was the day. Starbucks launched pumpkin spice latte again. This is the earliest they've ever launched it.
Are they already launching that?
They have launched it yesterday. So our listeners that wanted to know that, while it's 103 in Austin.
Well, it's not like that everywhere, but still, August is a little too.
It's too soon, man.
It's way too soon.
September 1st is you got to wait till September 1st. You show me one pumpkin that's growing in a patch somewhere. I mean, probably not many. They're probably all like this big. So anyway.
And you're seeing the pumpkin ales come out too. I saw several pumpkin ales in Oktoberfest already, and it's
yeah. I saw that on the charter stats today, and apparently because the pumpkin spice is 10% of their annual sales every year.
Wow,
that one pumpkin spice latte. So they were like, "Yeah, let's bring it up."
10%.
That's crazy.
People spending, what is it, $6?
Pumpkin spice is probably at least that. Yeah, probably $7. So, all right. So back to the book. So one thing, so I think there's a lot. I know I have a little judgment around the idea of power, right?
Yeah.
Especially the way we think about it, the way we see it in movies, political power, corporate power. Nobody likes those things. That's always the bad guys, right?
Right.
But I think it's important also that nobody likes powerlessness, right? Nobody likes to be powerless.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is the alternative. So you definitely want to learn power. But when I look up the definition of power and you do a little word study on it, power is the ability to do stuff, basically. Like the root word is posse in Latin.
Yeah.
Which means be able. So power is just the ability to get stuff done. It's the power to get stuff done. It's the power to influence and try to kind of get people to do stuff. So it's either yourself getting stuff done or the ability to influence others to get done. So if you think of it like that, it's not as dark as kind of what we've been led to believe.
Sure. Yeah.
Point. So,
and influence is not, a lot of times you associate influence with having a person who has power also has influence over others, which can be negative, but it can be very good too. We see a lot of influential people out there who you would consider to have power, but
influence is definitely a form of power, right? It's
Billy Graham.
Yeah.
How much influence did he have? I would say he was a very powerful person when it came to his influence over, thousands and thousands, millions of people.
Yeah, millions of people. So here's another thing from the preface. And I think if you dive into this book, I know some people like to skip the preface and stuff like that. I would definitely read it because it has a lot of context about the rest of the book.
Yeah.
One thing he says, learning the game of power requires a certain way of looking at the world, a shifting of perspective. It takes effort and years of practice, for much of the game may not come naturally. Certain basic skills are required, and once you master these skills, you will be able to apply the laws of power more easily.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes into what those different skills are, which are basically, I'll just hit them real quick. The ability to distance yourself from the present moment, to look back and forth, back to the past and into the future. The art of deception, which I know that one's like, ugh, I don't know if I want to be good at deception, but
right.
he goes into why.
Yeah.
And to not see, but to only see circumstances, not to necessarily see good and evil, which again goes completely against the whole Protestant work ethic, all that kind of stuff, beliefs. But it's also as a form of defense, as we'll talk about in some of the laws, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You can also have power by what you do not, and what you do and do not allow yourself to get dragged into. And then he says power you have to learn as a social game. You have to understand people and psychology. And you have to learn to always take the most indirect route to power.
Yeah. Nope.
So,
yeah, it's not always a clear path, to the top. So there's a lot of things that happen along the way. So where do you want to start? I mean, and do you want to start with one of your, because we each picked out, we're not going to go through all 48 laws.
Yeah. Well, Damien wants to know if these laws of powers can get women. So one
yeah, well, it's very applicable to the dating scene, I guess.
Or you could read his other book, Seduction. Read that one too.
That's right. That one would be more
in line.
Yeah, that one would probably fit better in that world. This one's about getting to a certain level, I guess, within an organization. Whether it be government, in the corporate world, or even, if you're creating a personality. I think about, let's just look at it from a perspective of, not somebody that's been in corporate world or is in politics, but somebody that's just creating a personality, what we would call a guru, that we've all known those gurus that have come about. And there's a certain level, if you look at some of these things, there's certain, obviously, I mean, you can see elements of each of these things that they have applied, like people like Tony Robbins, influencers out there, and, people ultimately that have a certain level of influence. It's not about just charisma, but it's about giving a certain level of persona. And I'll just go ahead. I'll jump right into one of mine is, and we've talked about this one before, but never appear to be perfect. And that is the one thing that is contrary to what most people think when you're achieving a certain level of influence, right? This is the law 46.
Oh, you're just going straight to the back of the book. I like that.
Yeah.
We're going backwards.
It was,
by the way, he says in this book, there's two ways to read it. You can just read straight through and kind of learn it.
Yeah.
Or you can kind of skip around based on what you think you need at the time.
That's the way I tackle it. I just look at the table of contents. And I'm like, ooh, that looks interesting. And I go right to it. So, so never appear to be perfect. It's always contrary to what you think. It's contrary to what you would think. Like, I need to have all of my ducks in a row. But appearing better than others is always very dangerous. And
do you want to read the law from the table of contents on each one of these?
Yeah, let's see. I actually pulled it up. I was smart, and I did the Chat GPT.
Okay, let's see if it's right.
Oh, you know what? It skipped 46 on when I told it to pull up the persuasive lessons. So I'll pull it up right here on my own then. Let's see. All right, here we go. $46. All right. Never appear to be perfect. Appearing better than others is always dangerous, but most dangerous of all is to appear to have no faults or weakness. So this, again, we've talked about this in the past, where it comes to interesting writing. When it comes to copywriting, you talk about
Achilles heel.
Yeah, everybody likes to see some vulnerabilities in everyone, and so envy creates silent enemies. It is smart.
That's a good line right there.
Yeah. It is smart occasionally to display defects and admit to harmless vices in order to deflect envy and appear more human and approachable. And I think that's important. You know, you look at there's any key figure out there that you follow. I think they have, to some degree, admitted to their vulnerabilities. So you can take anybody. I think people in politics today, Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr.
Yep.
He's out there, and he's developed quite a following of people in the political world as an independent. But he's admitted, like, if you followed any of his interviews, you can see like one thing after another. He's told stories that are hilarious, but it also creates a human side to him that, here's a guy, he's admitted to struggling along the way. He struggled with, drug use, and, you listen to his voice and it's just, it sounds awful when he talks. It's very, he's got a major problem there. And he's flat out, in interviews, he's flat out honest about his past mistakes. And I think to a degree, I think a lot of people appreciate that. People are looking for someone who's more like them in a lot of ways, who can relate to them. And we've used this in the comic book analogy, or the superhero analogy, where no one likes Superman for whatever reason. It's like Superman is a boring character, and it's just because he is the antithesis of every other superhero out there that has some kind of foible, some kind of problem, some kind of vulnerability. Superman is not vulnerable, except for Krypton, I guess.
Yeah. Even Captain America in Marvel is the most perfect of the group, and he always gets made fun of by the rest of them because he's like too perfect, right? That's
exactly
his whole identity,
right?
So he gets picked on because of that.
That's right. He's the brunt of all their jokes because he is, he does everything right. He's the Boy Scout, So, and no one likes the Boy Scout. I think Boy Scouts are great, but no one likes the Boy Scouts who does everything right. They're looking for somebody who has some frailties along the way. So, and I think that anybody, if you notice any level of influence, or when you're giving persuasive talks or speeches, one of the things you should admit to is some mistakes along the way. I think those are some of the best speeches or the best talks, is getting on the same level of everybody else and not making yourself above. But because I think, like he says, that can create a certain level of envy, and it can be dangerous, especially if you're moving up the ranks of influence, or any, within an organization, within politics. As you mentioned that, Robert Greene wrote this book after struggling in Hollywood, where I can imagine this is used against people all the time, right? I mean, there's nothing but envy when it comes to Hollywood, people moving to the top, and in that profession, it's probably dog eat dog world. But yeah, I think it's, vulnerabilities, whether you're writing in copy, whether you're presenting yourself as an influencer out there, creating that vulnerability and admitting your mistakes and going with it. And I sometimes cringe, like, even in my industry where I'm trying to like make sure everything's right, but I'll do things that are just totally off the cuff sometimes and make mistakes. And at the time, it's really, it really grinds on me. But then it's like, it's never as bad as it seems. And people appreciate that. Because I think that what we don't understand as people of influence, if we're in any level of influence, is that the people on the other side are having the same struggles. And it's not good that we try to rise above that, or try to make ourselves or make it look like we're above all of that thing, all of that stuff. But that we also struggle at times, and we also deal with vulnerabilities, and we have an Achilles heel at times that we have to overcome.
Well, the other thing about it is that if you admit the imperfections, and the movie that's coming to mind is 8 Mile, Eminem's story, right? And in the final rap battle, right? So if you're not familiar with the story and how rap battles work, shame on you. But like in a good rap battle, people will do research on each other and they'll try to find stuff that people don't want to know about them, and they'll use it against them in the rap battle, right?
Right.
So that goes back and forth. Well, in the final rap battle in 8 Mile, Eminem's like, he just says all the stuff about himself that the other guy's about to use for ammunition against him, right?
Yep.
And he just makes fun of himself, all the things, and the other
Which
guy's
completely takes away their energy. I mean, you basically
they got
sucked
nothing
away
left to say,
right?
And it just falls dead.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it. Is it's not just this kind of like humility; it's also taking away the ammunition of the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Admitting your faults up front before they can get to them, before your detractors can get a hold of that is definitely a power move, because it takes away all of their, it takes away their energy, their ammunition against you.
Yep.
And they have nothing to use. So
yeah, that's what anybody who's running for president from now on, they should just, when they announce their presidency, they just let it all out. It's like, all right, here's what you're going to find when you start digging. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've been bankrupt, blah, 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 blah. Like, just list the whole thing out, give the press a kit.
Yep.
And like leave nothing out. And they'll be so bored, like with like,
oh yeah.
Of course, you lose some of the press coverage when those kind of things break, but they'd have to go looking at your opponent for stuff because you've already admitted everything.
Yeah.
So, I've got 2 I want to do in a row.
Okay.
Because they seem to conflict with each other.
Oh, okay. I like it.
So the first one is law number 4. And law number 4 is always say less than necessary. When you're trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear and the less in control. Even if you are saying something banal, it will seem original if you make it vague, open-ended, and sphinx-like. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. The more you say, the more likely you are to say something foolish. Says the guy that wrote a 400-page book.
I think there's a proverb about that in the Bible.
There is.
Even a man appears wise when he says few words, or something to that.
Yeah, something like that.
Level. Even a fool appears wise when he speaks few words. Yes. I think is the proverb.
Yeah. So, I mean, that one's pretty straightforward. So I'm not going to go, real in depth into it. But then what I thought was interesting is 2 laws later, law number 6, it says court attention at all cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Which it's not exactly like the same as like, it's not the exact opposite, but it does strike me as a little like, well, usually the quiet person is kind of not seen a lot, not heard a lot. So then you say over here, court attention at all costs. So that law says everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Never let yourself get lost in the crowd or buried in oblivion. Stand out. Be conspicuous at all costs. Make yourself a magnet of attention by appearing larger, more colorful, more mysterious than the bland and timid masses. That's pretty bold.
So do those things really contradict? I mean, I
don't think they do, but at first glance, I think they could. I mean, they did for me at first glance.
Yeah.
Because I think you can
stand out without being.
But I think a lot of people do try to stand out verbally.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's, I think, where I think, a lot of people would kind of get those backwards. But there's other ways to stand out.
Yeah.
It could be with the way you dress. It could be with what you drive, which a lot of people definitely go that route, and the dress and things like that. Who you surround yourself with, the way you show up on social media and how often, and those kind of things. Those are all ways to stand out. If you're consistently on social media, as opposed to the person who is shy and doesn't want to be on social media, which tends to be people who naturally would just say less.
Yeah.
Like I'm like that, right? I'd rather say less.
Right.
So at the same time, that makes me think, well, then I probably shouldn't just always be on social media or whatever.
Yeah.
So now I've got to like read these laws a little deeper and be like, okay, so how do I balance those two?
Sure. Yeah.
In a way that's effective and powerful.
Yeah.
Right. And not obnoxious and not look foolish.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people can look foolish and sound foolish because they're courting attention at all cost and saying too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to be intentional about that, like what you're saying. I think you can get the attention, or you can, draw attention to yourself without saying a lot, if that makes sense. Without just always talking, so to speak.
I think part of the way you do that is be really good at what you do.
Yes. Yep.
I think I just thought of like Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan.
Yeah. They were very good at their profession. So
yeah, and they were fairly soft spoken.
Yeah,
weren't very. It's not like they were Dennis Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you compare Dennis Rodman and Michael Jordan, right? Both great players.
Yeah,
but one seems a lot. I mean, one is better, but Dennis Rodman ran his mouth all the time and reduced his status,
right,
in a lot of ways. Even though he's a great player and a great, on one of the greatest teams ever, and held his own on that team.
Sure.
But just couldn't hold his mouth.
He was loud, man.
He was loud. And
verbally
well, I will say this. He had law 6, court attention at all costs.
Yes. Yeah.
With the hair, the jewelry, the tattoos, like the outfits, like he had that part.
Yep.
But he didn't have law 4 down.
Yeah.
So that's to me, while they're not opposites, it does seem that can be a tricky balance there.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that, wants you to say stuff.
Now, use who would be an opposite player from him who said little but had that was everywhere? Because I would consider Jordan to be, he was one of those phenomenal players, but you didn't hear him talking a whole lot. He was just good at what he did. Yeah,
but he was everywhere. He did get attention, but he got attention by his actions.
By his actions, yeah.
By his advertisements, so he attracted attention that way. He had all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a fine line to work on, is how do you get the attention without running your mouth too much?
Yeah. Especially, on social media. I mean, I'll say one of the ways that I spend, or I have influence in my industry, is not that I'm spouting my mouth off like I'm an expert in everything or every aspect of my industry, but I interview people and talk to people. So I'm always throwing up interviews of people, and you know what they say when you interview people, they naturally, it's a weird effect that happens when you interview other people. It's kind of like that Joe Rogan effect, where Joe Rogan doesn't know, he's not an expert on any of these topics, but he knows how to ask questions to people.
Yeah.
Right. He had some very interesting guests on his show, but he's just exploring. He's asking questions. And so I try to kind of use that same.
Well, I think that's law number approach. 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's sort of law number 1 kind of thing, which is never outshine the master.
That's right.
And when you have a guest on your podcast, they're the master.
They're the master. Yeah.
That's why
the spotlight, you always turn the spotlight to them. Right. Yeah. But you naturally are associated with them because you have you have the platform that you're bringing, you're bringing the spotlight to them. But it's like I tell people, it's like, people come up to me in my industry and they're like, they think that naturally, because you have a podcast and you talk to all of these people, I'm not an expert at all in any one realm of whether it be additive manufacturing, like 3D printing, or all of these different technologies that they bring up. But I just ask people questions, and I just am inquisitive. Like, well, how does that work? And I just let them talk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it is a law, it is that law of just being not overshining that person. But in the same sense, it's also, there's a law it talks about in the book about the law of playing, like, it's kind of like the Columbo effect, where you're playing kind of the dumb guy, where you're really smart.
Yeah.
But you're just asking the right questions and you're listening and you're kind of, if you've ever watched a Columbo episode where he's kind of very subtly asking questions, but he's getting the right information from the people, and he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, it's a, classic, I would say anybody that's looking to be a good salesperson or marketing should watch a Columbo episode and just see how he kind of talks to people and gets information from them. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So what was your other two you had picked out, or the next one you had picked out?
So one of the others I had is to make yourself, make yourself seem vulnerable when you're strong. Or let's see, let me go straight to the law. Make yourself appear weak when you're strong, so to speak.
Damien is on the ball. He's courting attention he keeps commenting. So he's courting attention by commenting.
It says, keep others. Here's one of the laws, 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
Ooh, keep others in suspended terror. Like some of the way he words some of these are so dark.
Yeah.
And diabolical. But yeah, tell me more about that.
So I think this plays in. I think one of the reasons I like this, because this kind of plays into a lot of Sun Tzu Art of War stuff. But you never want to give everything away. You always want to, I guess you could call it being humble. But I always recall, like, we can talk about, because you and I are both in the military. So, and I don't know if I've mentioned the story before, but when I was in boot camp, did you ever do the bugle sticks?
Oh yeah.
Sean?
Yeah. Yep.
So I really remember this. This always stands out. So
should we describe what a bugle stick is for the listeners? Probably.
Yes. Why don't you give a description?
So basically, it looks like
like a large Q-tip.
It's a huge Q-tip that you hit somebody else with.
Right.
And usually sometimes you're standing on little platforms so you can knock each other. I think if you ever saw Gladiator back in the 80s or 90s, like I think they had a version of it where they tried to knock each other off. American Gladiators. Yeah,
absolutely.
So basically a giant Q-tip where you're trying to knock the snot out of somebody.
Yep. That's right.
They do it to you.
And they put you in it's like they put you in a little arena, right? In boot camp. You remember that? They put you in the circle. And so they pair you up with somebody. And, and so prior to this, I don't know how your experience went, but, in my experience, when I was in boot camp, they paired me up, and I'm shy of 6 foot. I'm at best close to 5'11", and they paired me up with a guy that was 6'3", right? So I just went like, I knew the guy. He was, not only was he taller, but he was just outright, he was larger than me.
Different weight class.
Exactly. But that's the way, that's the way it went. So,
when you get on the battlefield in war, you don't get to pick.
You don't get to choose, right? So here's me, 5'11". I'm like, okay, here I am. I'm just going to go crazy. And so I just started acting completely insane, yelling and just going crazy with this bugle stick. And it freaked him out, right? It was completely unexpected. So as soon as I got in the ring, I was just going like nuts, just yelling and screaming, kind of like a raving madman, and just started wailing on him. And it's one of those things that I always come back to. He was completely caught off guard because it was a surprise to him. So
you went full metal jacket on him.
I went full metal jacket. I was just wailing on him and screaming and just doing the tomahawk chop and just going up against him. And so completely caught him off guard. And I ended up winning. I mean, I knocked the guy down, And our drill sergeant was like, what? You know, he was screaming, you know, it was just like everybody was going nuts.
Yeah.
But it was just because I just put on this new persona at that particular time that no one had seen. And I just let it come out. And it was just some raging lunatic in that circle. And it scared the shit out of him. I mean, he was like, what is going on? So it was almost like I was on some kind of drug, but that's to me, I was intentional about that. I played that to my advantage, and it scared the like I said, it scared the shit out of him.
Yeah, you were on the drug of self-defense.
Exactly. I knew I was not going to compete on the same level. So
right.
And you can use that on any, you know, within any analogy. You know, you compare it in sports. You can't play on the same field if you're a smaller team.
Yep.
You can't compete on the same level. You know, what is it? A Georgia State University can't compete on the same level as a University of Alabama. So they got to do something different and, you know, bring out all the tricks. So
triple option.
Exactly.
Georgia Tech, you know, for years, like, well, we can't beat them. We'll at least wear them out and frustrate them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so
now from a business standpoint, I think this works really well because you can anytime you can create an air of uncertainty, it builds intrigue, right? It's almost like in writing, copywriting, you create suspense. And then you offer things that kind of they're pattern interruptions. So you're always doing something that interrupts pattern and it keeps people's attention. So that's basically what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like an open loop too. It's like now it's like I don't know who this guy actually. I thought I knew this guy, but maybe I don't. Maybe I better not turn my back on this guy for the rest of boot camp. You know, which is exactly where you want them. Right?
That's right. Exactly.
Then they don't ask you to do their chores for them.
Yeah.
What else did you have?
Law number 32. I love this law. Because you can apply this in copywriting. And it's called play to people's fantasies. Fantasies can never here's something interesting that I read. So fantasies can never operate alone. It requires the backdrop of the mundane, right? So you have to be working in an air of it was something and mundane, but I can't even read my own writing. Humdrum. There we go. Humdrum and mundane.
Okay.
So you have to be working in and I think that's why people love movies, because it breaks out, you know, most people don't want to watch a movie about everyday life. They're looking for something that breaks them out of the everyday life of what they're living. So when you tell me about this great movie about everyday life, where, you know, a guy that's just everything, you know, it's just a regular drama about everyday life, I'm out, you know, because I already live everyday life. I'm looking for something that looks extraordinary. And I think that that's what's attractive for most people is they're looking, when they go to the movies, they're looking for something out of the ordinary or extraordinary, or plays to their, you know, more or less their fantasies.
This is why beer commercials do not show the guy sitting alone at home on the sofa.
Exactly.
They always show him around friends and women and at sporting events and like out living life, not sitting on the sofa drinking a beer, watching reruns of or just watching Sports Center or reruns of House Hunters with his wife. Like, that would not sell much beer.
That won't sell anything. No, not at all. And here's to follow up with what you just said, Sean. It says, one of the things I wrote down is a sudden fantasy. This basically is a sudden transformation, and it will bring a total change in one's fortune, bypassing work, luck, and self-sacrifice, right? Because no one wants to hear about, and this goes to you copywriters out there, no one wants to hear about you know, getting, you know, losing 100 pounds if you have to lose 100 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever you have to do to get back to your ideal weight. No one wants to hear about the self-sacrifice, the work that's going to go into that. And that's why diet pills and, semaglutides and all of these things are so popular today, is because people want the easy way, the easy transformation to get back to that ideal, weight or that ideal person, so, but, if it's not weight, it's something else. It's muscle, just do this, and you'll be there in no time.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is a small, I think, subsection of the market that you can, if you niche, that likes the grind, right? I mean, there's the David Goggins
Yeah.
crowd. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they thrive on that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, people love to talk about scale and like reach. That does not hit the masses.
No. No,
What hits the
absolutely.
masses is ease, shortcuts, secrets, all those things. So if you're thinking, well, yeah, sometimes this kind of promotion works where you tell them the truth and how hard it is. It does work to a certain crowd, but that will never scale.
Yeah.
Because the majority of people want the
They'll
easy way
fall.
out.
And they'll fall by the wayside if you give them, if it's too, they're like, I'm out, dude. I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Exactly.
It sounds like work to me. And you could apply this. I see it in golf all the time, because I get bombarded with ads in the golf, and, it's never about, well, any pro golfer will tell you, the easiest way to fix your swing is to go out there and just practice. Well,
yep.
I want to blame it on something else. I want to blame it on, that driver. I want to blame it on the, that set of irons that I've got, and I need a custom set that's suited more to my swing. Right. It's not my swing. It's the stupid clubs.
That was my argument, because I couldn't afford like a real set of golf clubs. So I would get like the off the shelf club, and I'm 6'1".
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah, these are just like an inch too short for me because they're off the shelf. The average person's 5'10", whatever.
Yep.
So like these aren't right for me. That's why I always top the ball. And there's probably some truth to that, but I could also bend over a little bit and get muscle memory and make it work.
Not come off your exactly. Not come
I'm
off.
sure Tiger Woods could take any set of clubs from any shelf, anywhere. Still to this day.
It's so funny, man, because you watch these pro guys, some of these pro guys, even the John Daly, who's kind of way past his prime. They're in
so is Tiger, for that matter.
Oh yeah. I mean, just taking any club that you give them, and they're just like cranking it. Right off.
Tiger needs to go to the senior tour at this point.
I think so.
He is not. I think he could dominate the senior tour probably.
Yeah. I think it's about time.
That's a big pill to swallow, though.
Yeah.
For that.
That's a humbling reality for him right now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, his last few tournaments, and it's crazy because they always show his name on the leaderboard, across the ticker, across the bottom. He'll get more TV time still to this day, and he hasn't had a great tournament. He's had, I guess, the one tournament, but other than that, just hasn't done well.
Nope.
But it's crazy but I mean, he earned that reputation for a long time. So I think another one I like is Law 48, which is assume formlessness.
Okay.
Probably because I'm kind of into Eastern thought right now, quite a bit.
Yeah.
So this is very, be water, my friend, right? So it says by taking a shape, having a visible plan, you open yourself to attack instead of taking a form for your enemy to grasp. Keep yourself adaptable and on the move. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and no law is fixed. The best way to protect yourself is to be as fluid and formless as water. Never bet on stability or lasting order. Everything changes. And we've talked about this with, companies that aren't adaptable. They're rigid in their thinking. I mean, the history of companies is just littered with, the blockbusters that didn't see, online coming, the Kodak that didn't see digital cameras coming, even though they had the patent for it, and they just
Isn't that crazy?
Threw it to the side. So yeah, we don't want that, because they just couldn't comprehend how to monetize it, or whatever.
Right.
And you see right now, right, with AI, there's a lot of a lot of writers, a lot of artists that are like,
yeah,
can't do what humans do, and you're gonna, if you don't adapt to it, you're gonna die.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's.
And there's another friend of mine who's, he's made a really good living helping people write books,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's got an AI software program that will help you write your book because he's willing to adapt and move on. So,
really,
yeah, he dove in and he was like, okay, I see where this is going, and I see that it's an unstoppable wave. I'm going to surf it, instead of like be scared of it. So yeah, I think that's a big one is to, and I remember TD Jakes saying one time, TD Jakes, the pastor from, I think he was from Dallas, wasn't he?
I think so.
Dallas area.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing him, he had a talk show. He's a movie producer. He's done a lot of different things, author. And I remember hearing him say one time, he's like, no, I'm TD Jakes. Like, don't put anything after that because I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a, pastor, bishop, author, movie director, talk show host, game show, whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's,
yeah,
we're in such a world that like
be flexible,
puts a lot of stress on like specialization and niching and
it's true. Yeah.
carving out your thing. And I just, for me, I really like the idea of that, being flexible and open to whatever's next.
Yeah. No, you have to be.
I think so fast.
I was going to say, in a world that's in constant change with technology, and I mean, you have to be on your toes. And I kind of like that approach of just not saying, here's what I do, but being ready for anything new that comes around.
Yeah. Figure out how you can fit into that world. Like, you probably got some kind of something you could do in that world. So, try to figure it out. Yep. Any other ones you wanted to cover?
I think the only other one that I had kind of made a notation on was, I think it's law number 6. So going towards the front, court attention at all costs. Everything is judged by its appearance.
We did that one already.
Okay. That. So we got, okay. So so you've already covered that. Somebody that comes to mind, if you've ever read the biography of P.T. Barnum, it's a fascinating read. There's the, I forgot the name of the book that's out there, but I would recommend it. It's actually a biography of him. And, just his approach, because he's like, he was big about everything.
Yeah.
But it was also, he was very intentional. The way he courted, he wasn't just courting attention for attention's sake, but it was all for a specific purpose. So
I think Houdini was very similar as well.
Yes. Yep.
And you think
there's a book about him called the modern, I think it was like the modern superhero. It's like a biography of him, like Houdini. Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting because he created a persona. We've talked about, there's a book that we talked about in the past. I forgot what it is, but it's about creating, you create some persona and you become that kind of.
Yeah.
Do you remember that book? It was like
I don't remember the name of it.
Because it was talking about Bo Jackson, how he's like,
Oh, was that the alter ego effect?
Yes, that's it. That's it.
With Todd. What was his name? Todd. Yeah, the alter ego effect.
Yeah. That's a great book, by the way, because I listened to that on Audible and about creating that alternate personality.
Yeah. Todd Herman.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, that's a great book. Very good book. I think what's similar is law number 8. Not exactly, but make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary.
Yeah.
First time I read that, I was like, oh, a lead magnet. That's where my copy brain went to. Right. It's like, oh, yeah, have a lead magnet. But really the thing behind this is you want home field advantage.
Yeah.
You want them to come to your office. You want them to come to your place.
It's a power play. Yeah.
You want your things around you, your diplomas on the wall, your accolades, all that kind of stuff. You'd rather come to your podcast studio, even if they're the guest.
Yep.
So yeah, all those kind of things. Like, how do you get people to come to you, and then use bait if necessary?
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. But I think that applies in the online world too. Is, you want, just like you want to set the time, you want people to use your calendar, not you use their calendar when you're setting an appointment. So they're on your Zoom or whatever, like all those little, that's kind of the digital version of that too.
Yep.
It's subtle when it's like that, but it's very clear. It's like, this is why like financial brokers have A-class office space and, shiny desks and views outside their office. 'Cause it's both intimidating and comforting at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A little both.
I would say too, from a it's not just a physical space too, but I look at podcasting, and I've been doing it for years. And in an industry that I'm in, it's a power move in the sense that, if I approach, Bob Smith as just another sales guy, he thinks of me as just another guy, just another person out there trying to win his business. But if I approach Bob Smith as, I really love what your company's doing, and I want to feature you on my podcast.
Ooh. You're like the spider bringing him into your web.
I'm just bringing Bob in, and Bob is now a colleague, right?
Yep.
Bob is now, we are on the same level. Bob is not up here, whereas every other sales approach is completely different. They're like, they're talking up to Bob. Yes. And I'm talking on the same level, if not almost down to Bob at times, because Bob has to come, and he has to come on my show, and I get to tell him what questions. And then,
you've got the nicer mic, you've got the background. He's in his office. It's a little messy. Sounds not great.
He's got noise going on in the background. And so, I mean, that's a people ask me about that, and it's like, that's an advantage. Podcasting is an advantage, even if your show is not, even if you have a podcast show that's, is not getting several 100,000 listeners, you can do that as a strategic advantage, in any industry that you're doing, to talk to people.
Yep.
And whereas normally you would have a tough time getting in the door. So.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's the podcast hosts have gotten, as you said about Joe Rogan and some others, but in any given industry, it seems like the same people are running around doing podcasts, and the hosts are the ones that are actually getting more and more popular.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the guests are staying about the same.
Right.
They earn their clout some other way.
But
every time they show up on somebody's,
they're
bringing the traffic to that host, and
you
string 3, 4, 5 of those together, and all of a sudden you're a famous podcast host.
That's right.
Without writing a book, without doing anything else, like you just, because you must be special if you've got all these people willing to give you their time in your studio.
Influence by association. It's really cool.
Yeah, third-party credibility is another phrase for it. So
well,
that's good, man. Some good stuff. There's other ones in there that I think people should, check out and read.
I think authority, any type of authority that you can put yourself in, whether it's in podcasting, publishing a book is an immediate authority that you can leverage. And as you mentioned earlier, I got to talk to you more about your friend that's doing this.
I could probably get him on the show.
Leverage AI into books, because I think this is so important for people to leverage their expertise into authorship, into books, into podcast, whatever, because it does work. I mean, it works every time. But most people, you're going to find, it always feels like, whatever industry you're in, and I know, Sean, you're big about not getting super focused, but you can apply this to anything, really. I mean, you could apply this to anybody that's even coaching, interviewing your clients and things like that. But I think on some level, it's if you're a podcast, if you're associated with industry experts through your podcast or just through publishing, being a book author, whether, regardless of whether the book's a bestseller, you're instantly an authority in whatever you're talking about. People give more credibility. And it's crazy the way that works, because I've seen it time and time again, even with authors who have books that are not bestsellers, but just have author by their name. Even in 2024, where, books are, I mean, everybody's got a book, or it feels like everybody's got a book, but it's not really the case. I mean, it
feels that way because we're kind of in that world and we notice it. But and the fact some of these books are terrible, but
they are.
Nobody ever, the majority of people never read past the cover.
Right.
Doesn't mean you should just put out a bad book, but you'd be surprised how few people read if you were to hand out 100 books.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and it was full of typos. Like, you get like 2 people to tell you about it. The rest would never know.
Yep.
It's kind of like, with courses, like people buy courses and the finish rate on courses is less than 20%.
That's right.
So
we could turn every episode into a mini book. Can you believe that? We could do that.
Yeah. That would be cool.
So I mean, that's all I've got. I mean, it's I think that it's a classic. I would consider it a classic read. 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene.
Yeah. I mean, this is 2024. It was written in 98. I mean, does that 25 years, 26 years, that make it an antique now? Or something?
It does. It's an antique.
We'll call it a classic.
It's not quite Cialdini. I mean, that was 1980. So it's not quite there yet.
But maybe this is a classic and Cialdini's an antique.
Right. Yeah. I would say it's worth having it on your bookshelf, just if not to read and understand. Some of these you're going to be able to apply in your own business. Some of these you're just going to cringe and say, yeah, I've seen that in cults and
I would even argue, I mean, this is my own kind of, like, I would read the ones that make you cringe first.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a reason that it's uncomfortable for you to read that.
Yeah.
It's either that you are naive about it or think that that's maybe not happening. Because anything you're not willing, there's a saying, and one of my coaches told me one time, it's like, anything you're not willing to admit that you might do is a stumbling block for you. It's like the pastor who says he'll never have an affair ever.
Yeah.
And believes that. Like, that may be the best of intention, but it also puts up a blind spot on you.
Yeah, that's right. Because you're a human being.
Right. Because you're like, oh, that never happened to me. I'm beyond that. Like, whatever. Now, when you admit that, hey, that's a possibility for me, so I'm gonna do these things and make sure the safeguards in place. I'm gonna make sure I have somebody with me. Blah blah blah, like that kind of stuff. Like that's. But yeah, when you say that will never be me, then
I'll never do that is a dangerous. It's a dangerous saying. You should never.
Never say never.
I'll never say never, man.
Dang it,
never. Because we are, as you say, we are all fallible and prone to error. So, I mean, that's one thing that I want to avoid for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So you had some. Did you have some? I think you had some things outside of the book, or
no? Maybe we can cover that next week. I've got some flights brewing.
Okay, cool.
Maybe for next week we got a couple of flight we could do.
Okay.
I'll also see if my friend wants to come on. I don't know if he can be on next week, but maybe next couple of weeks. And I think our guest from last week, she's looking for some guests for us. So
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah. It seems like we've had guest after guest lately. So it's kind of nice to just take a break and talk about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then football season will be here. So we'll
Absolutely.
Just football and persuasion or something.
Football and persuasion.
Maybe do an episode on recruiting and persuasion.
Oof, man, that's good. This day and age, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what these recruiters have to go through especially these days. I mean, they got to have a big checkbook for one thing.
That's it. It's money.
Yeah, man, that's
NIL.
tough game, man.
I do. In that same genre, I will say that. So, with college football, I think it's amazing the marketing that these guys do.
Oh yeah,
because if you watch, and I think you've watched. I don't know if you probably don't play any video games or anything like that, but you're fully aware of the college football game that came out. I think earlier this month, or maybe it was last month, but I think they intentionally did that right before college football season, because you're seeing like people create these little videos of people playing college football 25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're seeing it all over the place. So brilliant move on their part, just to seed the landscape with all of these videos of people playing this game and really kind of build anticipation for the upcoming season.
Yep.
I think it's very smart. So sometimes it's all about timing.
It is. I mean, that is a strategic release for sure. They knew what they were doing 100%.
Yep.
So yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. The book again, I'll hold it up one last time. You've got your copy, Sean. The book is Power, 48 Laws of Power. Robert Greene. He's a good writer. And he's got a few books out there. This is probably one of my favorites. There's a couple of others. Like I love the one with 50 Cent is a good read too. So if you can find that.
Mastery is another good one.
Mastery is a fantastic book. That's a really good one. Yeah. So, but we'll put a link to it where you can find it on Amazon. But thanks for listening. You can find us. This is episode 366. And you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your favorite platforms. Spotify, we're there. Check us out. Leave us 5 stars. Thanks for the comments. And we'll see you all next week.
See ya.